Okay, so today we're not just going to go through some boring vocabulary list. We're actually going to tell a story of a crime. We'll follow it from the very first idea, that first whisper, all the way to the final decision in a courtroom. We're going to look at the very specific words that police, reporters, and lawyers use along the way. So what does that journey actually look like? This is the big question, right? This is what's going to guide our whole story today. We're going to follow the entire life cycle of a crime, stage by stage, and use its own special vocabulary to really understand the journey from thought to action and finally to justice. You know, every crime starts not with a big action, but with a small idea. So this is chapter 1 of our story, the moment a plan is hatched. This is where the thought starts to take shape, long before anyone has actually broken a law. So how does a criminal plan even start? Well, it often begins by picking out a target. Not just any target, but a specific person or a place. Then maybe you offer a role to a partner, an accomplice. But you know, the most important step, it's the decision to actually go through with it. That's what turns a bad thought into a real commitment.
Let's zoom in on that phrase for a second. Pick out. This isn't random at all. It means to choose something on purpose. Think about it. Like, you have a map of a city with dozens of banks. Criminals don't just decide to rob a bank. They pick out a very specific one. Maybe it's the one on that quiet street, with the old security system. It is absolutely a calculated choice.
All right, so the plan is set. Now it's time for the action. This is that moment where the line gets crossed. And you'll see the language here becomes way more intense and legally very, very specific. Okay, this is a huge one. We use these words rob, steal, burgle all the time, almost like they mean the same thing, but in the eyes of the law, totally different. You rob a person, face-to-face, using force or threats. That's the key part, the confrontation. You steal an object, usually secretly. And you burgle a place, which is all about breaking in illegally, even if you don't end up taking anything. And sometimes a robbery takes on a very specific form, a holdup. I mean, this is that classic movie scene, right? Someone walks into a bank, shows a weapon, and demands all the money. It's a direct, terrifying confrontation, and it's all designed to grab valuables as fast as possible.
So this sequence of events is really important. The criminals commit the crime, which is just a formal way of saying they break the law. This could involve entering by force. Their main goal is to seize valuables. That means taking sudden, firm control of them. And then, of course, comes that last desperate step, escape the scene before they get caught. But, escaping the scene is almost never the end of the story. Because now, a whole different set of characters enters our story. This is where the justice system starts to respond.
Yeah, so the aftermath of a crime brings in some really key roles. You have the victim, who's the direct target. Sometimes you might have a hostage, which is someone held against their will, kind of like a bargaining chip. And then, so importantly, you have the witness, the person who actually saw the incident. Notice that neutral word, incident. Their story, their testimony, can change everything. So after the incident, a very clear legal path starts to unfold. First, a suspect is accused or formally blamed, but that's just the beginning. The really critical step is when the state decides to charge them. That means they think there's enough evidence to actually prosecute, and from there, the path leads straight to court and a trial begins. And this brings us to the climax of our story. All the evidence is in, all the arguments have been made. Now comes the one decision that is going to change everything. And that whole decision is wrapped up in one incredibly powerful word, convict. To be convicted means a court of law has officially found you guilty. This is not an accusation anymore, it's a legal fact. It's the moment the suspect becomes a criminal in the eyes of the law. And a conviction, well, it comes with a price. We always hear that criminals have to pay for their crimes, and this is exactly what that means. A sentence, a number that represents years of your freedom just gone. It's a direct and very severe consequence for the actions they took. But the consequences, they don't stop when the sentence is over. A conviction carries a weight that lasts a lifetime. Certain jobs might become forbidden to you. The freedom to travel internationally could be banned. And in a lot of places, even your basic right to vote can be withdrawn. The story of that one crime just keeps shaping a person's life long, long after it's over. So we've journeyed through the entire language of crime, from planning it to doing it to paying for it. But this vocabulary isn't just for dusty law books or police reports. It really leaves us with a much bigger question. Now that we know the words used to describe a crime, how can we use our own words through talking, through education, through understanding to stop this kind of story from ever beginning in the first place? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.